Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. In many ways, India's demographics are the envy of the world, as populations in countries such as China, the United States and Japan are getting older. India's population is getting younger. Since 2018, India's working age population has grown larger than the dependent population, children aged 14 or below, as well as people above 65 years of age. This bulge in the working age population is going to last till 2055 or 37 years from its beginning. India's working age population is now increasing because of rapidly declining birth and death rates. India's age dependency ratio, the ratio of dependents to the working age population, is expected to only start rising in 2040 as per UN estimates. This presents a golden opportunity for economic growth. It is, however, important to note that this change in population structure alone cannot push growth. There are many other factors that determine that. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze how to reap India's demographic dividend. Joining me on the program today are Bhanuchandar Nagarajan, former consultant, World Bank, Washington, D.C., Abhinav Prakash, Assistant Professor, University of Delhi, and Alok Vajpayee, Joint Director, Population Foundation of India. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Abhinav, I'd like to begin the program with you. Let's first try and understand, how do we reap India's demographic dividend?
See, there are several factors where this demographic dividend has a positive impact on the India's or any economy's story, growth story. One thing is that suddenly you have the number of working population increasing in the economy. So as the number of working population increases in the economy, obviously the output, the production is going to increase if you are able to provide them suitable jobs and all. Second is that once you have that happening, the taxes of the governments are also increasing. So the government have more money in hand to spend on the public services, goods and investment. Third point is that the aggregate demand in the economy also increases because this working age population, it is buying homes, it is buying cars, it is buying consumer durables, it is also buying, is spending on the consumer products. So aggregate demand in the economy also increases, which gives further impetus to the production process in the economy. The fourth point is that this section also saves money and invests money. So by the saving investment relation as well, you see the saving increasing in the economy, which enables higher spending, higher investment by the economy. However, all these things are dependent upon the fact that we are able to properly utilize this working age population, which presupposes that this working age population is healthy, is educated, is skilled, and there are opportunities available in the economy. If we can get these four things right and get them right at the same point, we will obviously see a rapid growth in the economy as was seen in the case of other countries like China, Japan and several East Asian countries. However, there is one more thing which is often not discussed when you're talking about economic growth rate. That is the role of the institutions. The institutions play a very important role in framing right policies and in accelerating growth. Other point is the presence of inequality. You might have a large working population, but remember as many research have pointed it out, that your income, your productivity, the future income you earn has a lot to do upon your social background, where you come from and what has been your social capital, what has been your educational and the family background, the generational background. So in a country which is highly unequal, we cannot take for granted that simply by increasing the working age population, we will be able to achieve a higher growth rate. It depends on lots of factors, both social factor and the economic factor and the institutional factors.
Absolutely. So that having been said, Alok Vajpayee, how will India's demographic dividend play out over the years till say 2037 or 2040?
I think if we look at the country, there are different sets of states which are passing through different stages of demographic transition. There are states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu who have already started witnessing the demographic dividend. There are states for whom demographic dividend is opening, like Andhra Pradesh, Delhi and many other states. And there are a third set of states for whom demographic dividend is yet to open, like Bihar, UP. So obviously, there will be different scenarios for these three sets of states in the country.
Okay. So that having been said, Banu, what steps have already been taken by the government, say in the short term over the last 5 years or so, to try and ensure that we can reap the benefits?
Okay. See, today we are basking in the glory of Chandrayaan, right? Like, so it can actually offer some lessons on how we can actually, with provision of proper education, proper health, and proper facilities, our people can actually do much better and be more productive and do great things over the next decade. Some of the economic aspects of it was explained by my co-panelist. Another opportunity that is in front of us is the technology-based economy that is going to explode. For example, right now we are already producing for the world in many things, right? They are going to be like more intensified over the next decade. For example, there can be a tailor in Delhi that can custom stitch something, a suit to somebody in London. It's already happening. And there can be instances where like a barber sitting in Bihar can like give a haircut to somebody in Boston. So all of these technologies are possible. And for us, like sitting here, the world is a market. Like previously there were constraints where we could not sell over long distances, and it was actually constrained by many other structural problems. Right now, like we can actually like produce for the world. Our children, when they are educated, when they are healthy, when they are provided opportunities, will take advantage of this. And even with the advent of technology, the educational opportunities are going to open up rapidly. Like we are already entering an era of lifelong learning. People have to pick up new skills to stay relevant. So all of this is happening. But to answer your question, some of the foundations of social security on which economic growth is possible was laid in the last few years. If you look at the social security structure in terms of the Ayushman Bharat program, or like the pension scheme for the unorganized, even the Krishi Samman Nidhi, expansion of scholarships, all of this actually have an effect on improving human capital. So all of this that we talked about was building on human capital, right? If you look at similar debates in the 1990s, we mostly spoke about the population burden. It became a cool demographic dividend only later, as we saw like the benefits of having an educated population, like improved economic growth and exports and so on. So overall, like I think, like you said in your introduction, and like my fellow panelists were saying, we are in a sweet spot. Like for the next 20 years, like we are going to see a expansion of working age population by almost 1 crore on an average per annum for the next 1 year, next decade, and then around 4.2 million per year for the decade starting 2030s. So we are in a sweet spot, but also there are like regional disparities, as Mr. Alok was pointing out. So this might give rise to a series of issues on like migration. How do we actually deal with the social and economic problems, political problems that arise with it? Some states are going to start aging by 2030. Like it's something like quite surprising, right? So
it's not going to be equal, basically.
Yeah. So like, how do we actually deal with that? And also like the technology also poses a threat as well, right? We are also entering the era of robotics. How are we going to like provide employment to so many people? Are like services for the elderly going to come through robots like it's happening in Japan, or migration from poorer states to the richer states, to put it that way? So there are like a myriad problems, like how we actually take advantage of the technological opportunities, and how we structure our economy, as Abhinav was saying, will actually like determine the success.
Absolutely. So we are in a sweet spot is what Banu is suggesting, Abhinav. But what are some of the barriers that we need to be wary of going forward?
I think he rightly pointed out the technological aspect of that. We are already entering the era of the fourth industrial revolution, and the problem which I see, and which is a major problem, is that you have different sections of the population who are very unequal in the terms of access to education and the human and the what you call the technological education and all those things. So even today we are seeing this problem that it is very difficult for a person who is coming from a poor background or a village background to jump to the higher productivity areas. He can't transition from the agriculture to the IT sector. He can't transition from the basic education which he has in the local college to the demanding, skill intensive, technological intensive new jobs which are coming up. It was easier earlier that he could move from his agricultural economy to the manufacturing economy. But even in the manufacturing today, the process of production, the technique of production is becoming so complex that it is becoming far more difficult to make that transition. And I think this is going to increase in the future. So I do not see that we are in the sweet spot per se. I think we are at a very challenging spot, and we have to figure out what to do about this technological divide. And
so in the short term, sorry to interrupt, would you say that one fix could be that we focus heavily on skill development?
I think we have to focus on the skill development, bridging the technological divide, and also on our basic education. You can't really, so this whole idea of pulling people from the agriculture sector and putting them into the modern sector presupposes that the people are capable of moving from the agricultural sector or from their subsistence level economic activities to the technological intensive production processes, which I don't see happening in the short term at least. That is going to need a massive intervention, a massive state-led intervention. We can't leave that on the private sector. It has to be public funded, massive program of re-education, reskilling, and bridging the technological divide.
So would you say something on the lines of a China model in India as well? Would that work?
I think so. See, the Chinese did not went about in the initial stages of development about educating everyone in the higher education. So what they did was to give you the basic education, and then they moved you toward the skill development and in the production process directly. Higher education in China has started booming only later, in the last 20-15 years. In India, we followed the opposite trajectory. The whole Nehruvian model was opening the IITs, in which only a few number of your population, segments of your population could enter, while the majority of the people were denied even the basic primary education. And that imbalance has remained in the policy structure of India, governments after governments. We are not focusing on the secondary level, we are not focusing on the primary level. What we are basically doing, open more graduate level colleges, you study in those colleges, you're not capable of getting any job in the economy. So I think we have to rethink and restructure the entire process of education and skill development in India so as to cope up with the coming technological disruption.
Absolutely. So that having been said, Alok Vajpayee, so what more do you think needs to be done so that we can reap the benefits?
Sure. I think I would like to agree with Abhinav, and I would like to add that it is a window of opportunity. It is not the demographic dividend which we are reaping. We will reap it only if we heavily invest in education, in healthcare, in nutrition, in skill development, in employment opportunities for our young population. If we compare with China, our average age is 28 years. In China, it is 37 years. 50% of our population is less than 25 years. So we need to invest into them, especially in girls' education. And second thing I would like to add is that without decline in fertility rates, our young parents will have to support their children, which means that their resources will not be used for productive purposes. So government has to make available access to family planning services to young population.
All right. So we need to have a progressive outlook, we need to have a futuristic outlook is what you're suggesting. Absolutely. So do we need to have a focused policy action plan as well going forward, Banu?
Policy in what sense is like the devil is in the details. Okay, so policy in what sense? Like I personally would not actually, say place curbs on the number of children you have. There has been a private members bill that has come last week by Mr. Rakesh Sinha, which actually like calls for reduction of benefits, ration card and PDS benefits for people who have more than 2 children, or like they should not contest elections. There are so on and so forth. I mean, there are obviously like right-based issues, and like I don't think it will stand the scrutiny of the courts. But actually, like we should actually look at this thing as a positive, in a positive manner, like a demographic dividend, and not as a burden. If you actually like focus that way and try to use what is given to us, it's a resource, right? Human resource, and do the things that we just talked about in terms of providing education, providing health, providing opportunities to access technology, so on and so forth. Only then we can actually benefit, and in fact it can be a driver for economic growth, as we just discussed before, in terms of initiating a virtuous cycle of consumption. And also, like once the population is more educated and more healthy, the chances of them being more productive than before is higher. So that is also something that we need to have. So if these are the elements of the policy, if these are the elements that will actually make our population work well for our country, then that is something that we should focus on, rather than taking a negative view of it.
Okay, so availability of the working force is one aspect of it, Abhinav, but actual employment is another. So just having the availability is not enough. You actually have to have them do something productive.
Yep.
So that having been said, is there any specific sector, is there any specific area that we need to focus on in the short term and also in the long term maybe?
Well, in the short term, what we can do very easily to expand the employment in the health, education, policing services, because we are very understaffed when it comes to policing and when it comes to teachers and the health workers. That's something which can be done by the government in the short term immediately. Second, in the medium term, what we need to focus is to expand the manufacturing base. And that has been a challenge in India. We have not been able to do so. We are perhaps the only major economy which has missed the industrial revolution in the real sense. And in the long term, of course, you have to work on these focus more on this technological aspect, because as we have seen that the technological disruption is going to render a large number of jobs obsolete. It's already happening in many sectors, and I think it's going to accelerate in the future. In the long term, we also need to tackle inequality in the economy. That is something which is not being talked about. Recently in America, you have a group of professors led by Raj Shetty. They basically prepared an atlas of America showing that which sectors of America you have the social mobility, which sectors of America you have intergenerational mobility, and which parts of America you don't have that. And the results are quite striking, that even in a city, there are only few pockets where the people are doing well when you compare that to their parents' generation and all, and in other pockets is stagnation or deterioration. I think the situation is actually worse in India because we are highly unequal in that sense. So if we cannot ensure social mobility, because we are such an unequal society that the access to the resources is so sharply divided, I don't think we can tackle this problem in the long run. So in the long run, any comprehensive policy will also have to tackle with the access to the opportunities and also the inequality, both economic and the social inequality. I think that's what we have to do.
Okay. Okay. So as we, Alok Vajpayee, as we get set to overtake China in the next 8 years as the most populous country in the world, that's a UN report that came out a few weeks ago which suggested that. How do we prepare for that? What needs to be done? Do we need to focus on urban development? Do we need to focus on rural development as more people from rural India come to the urban centers? Or do we need to look at it in a holistic way and concentrate on both rural as well as urban development going forward?
You are absolutely right. We need to adopt a comprehensive approach, actually, not just one-sided development. It has to be comprehensive, and we need to address not only the economic opportunities, but also we have to invest in social developments. We have to provide social security for the aging population. For instance, he talked about the population which will grow older in due course of time. Similarly, we have to address the needs of adolescents and youth. Adolescents don't have access to reproductive health services and information even. So they need to get access to quality reproductive health services, and the age at marriage, that needs to be enhanced. If we do that, there will be decline in fertility because there will be delay in age at marriage and consequently in age at first pregnancy. So we have to take all these measures. Luckily, we already have a national population policy which is very progressive, which is very comprehensive, and it follows the it is inspired from the ICPD International Conference on Population and Development, and it calls for the comprehensive approach and calls for providing the quality family planning services to all those who require it.
Okay, right. So Banu, so what kind of reforms do we need, especially in healthcare and education? Abhinav spoke about employment. What about healthcare and education?
Yeah, just before that, one of the things you just alluded to was infrastructure. Like that's something that we can act on immediately, especially urban infrastructure. As we see, like there is more migration for economic opportunities, right? Like and people who come from other states, for example, even in the case of Delhi, like you see people coming to slums, okay, and the human capital gets wasted in like diseases and other things. So if we can actually like provide proper urban infrastructure that could actually like help our population, that is something that needs to be done on war footing. And also like as we just spoke before, there's going to be like migration from states that are poorer to states that are richer. So migration is going to be like something that is actually going to happen quite a lot. So we have to evolve a model of building proper infrastructure, social infrastructure and physical infrastructure that could actually deal with this problem. Second thing that we have not spoken about much is the gender aspect, right? So so we have a sex ratio at birth of around 896. Like even states like Kerala, it has fallen down from 974 to 948 recently. So and our female labor force participation, like it was around 27.5. It has fallen down to 19 on the recent NSSO survey. For China, it is 63. So like so like we are actually like failing our sisters like in accessing opportunity and making them productive members of the economy. So and also there is this report on unwanted children, like where women keep giving birth till they get the first boy child. So like it was part of the economic survey like a couple of years ago. So gender is one aspect, like in fact like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao was probably conceived during that time. So how we actually empower our women is also something that's very, very crucial going forward. And like what Abhinav said before, how do we give access to people that are in the lower level of social spectrum is also something that we need to give, so that we actually build a more equitable society. See, all the growth that we talk about, if it's unequal, it actually doesn't serve a purpose, right? It can create its own problems. So how we actually deal with that is something that we need to focus on. And also like something interesting happened over the last few years of this decade, where we already hit what is called peak child, right? Like the number of in fact like the number of people that are from 0 to 11, we hit the peak in around the 2012 or something, and right now we for the 0 to 19 population we have already hit the peak. So the number of people from 0 to 19 which are part of the total population is going to come down, right? So so that actually like throws a entirely different kind of problem. In fact, the economic survey talks about a few of it, where like the number of schools per million children, it is going to come down from like increase from 6,000 to 7,500, because like there are less number of children attending more schools. So in fact, the economic survey calls for consolidation of schools. So we are actually going to go through a different different aspect of the education problem. So that is something that the education ministry has to look at. And also like the new education policy also talks about it quite a bit, on how to expand access in a massive way. Like some of the reforms that are actually thrown out in the education policy still talks about like bureaucratic tinkering, but how do we like massively expand like access to education through technology is something I think the executive will focus on, like mostly coming from the electorate and the population. So I think that is something that we will see, I guess, in the next half a decade. In terms of health, the health insurance bit actually that we spoke about started in the last government. is a step in the right direction. In fact, like there are examples like say Tamil Nadu, which has already executed it quite well for a longer period of time. So going forward, that will be that, and there are a lot of communicable and non-communicable diseases that are being treated. Like in fact, there is a goal of like eradicating tuberculosis.
Right.
So all of this are actually, I mean, many of these are already starting to happen, but like we have to do it on war footing on a massive scale. Like, I mean, that is, in India, everything is about scale, right? We always have islands of excellence. So how do we expand it to the mass of the population is something like we have to do, and like, hopefully we'll do it in the next few years.
Yeah, it's about taking everyone along at the end of the day. All right, quick closing comments from all my guests with the best way forward. Abhinav?
I think the government should do in the education sector what it did in the health sector with the Ayushman Bharat. A similar kind of massive intervention is needed.
Okay, right. Alok Vajpayee?
I would like to say that we need to take care of our adolescent and young population, and secondly, there is high unmet need for contraception in the country, which means the women do not have access to, they want to delay or don't want pregnancy, but they are not able to access the family planning services. That needs to be improved in the country. And thirdly, I would like to say that social determinants like age at marriage, son preference, and other factors need to be addressed.
Sure. All right. And Banu, close the show for us with the concluding remarks.
We actually spoke quite a lot about young children and working age population, but we need to take care of the elderly as well. Right now, the life expectancy at 60 is like 12 and a half years, 13 years almost. And so, I mean, how do we actually deal with the elderly population? In fact, like there are talks about increasing the retirement age, like it's 65 in the US. So we should not forget that as well. Like, they are going to be part of the dependent community. And how do we take care of those, especially in an era where migration is going to increase? How do we provide those social services is also something that we should not forget.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.